Breaking tonight, prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty for Charlie Kirk's accused killer, and the chilling text messages revealed, including an alleged confession. Our first look at the suspect in court tonight as investigators release those shocking exchanges to his roommate. The new insight into a possible motive and how his own mother first recognized him in surveillance photos after the shooting. Our Morgan Chesky pressing investigators for answers. Also breaking tonight, the new offensive in Gaza City as a UN commission accuses Israel of genocide. Thousands trying to flee as building after building is leveled to the ground. The major terrorism charges against Luigi Mangione dismissed. The legal victory for the man accused of murdering the UnitedHealthcare CEO. Why he could still face the death penalty. The White House quietly cutting funding to groups that work to prevent hate crimes. We speak with the president of one of the organizations hard hit and Pennsylvania's governor, who's also been targeted. Could the move put more lives at risk? The wild close call caught on camera. Look at this, an out-of-control car barreling toward a man coming inches from taking him out. An incredible discovery on the floor of Lake Michigan. The wreckage of ghost ship uncovered more than a century after it sank. Plus, the arrest just made after a hard drive with Beyoncé's unreleased music was stolen in Atlanta. What we're learning. Top Story starts right now. And good evening. I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom Llamas. We begin tonight with chilling new details about Charlie Kirk's suspected killer, now formally charged in the gruesome murder. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson appearing in court for the first time today, showing no emotion and wearing some sort of protective vest after Utah County Attorney's Office handed down 7 charges. Here's a look at all of them. They include 1 count of aggravated murder and multiple counts of obstruction of justice. Utah's prosecutor says he does plan to seek the death penalty. And tonight, we are also learning more about how Robinson was turned in. Investigators say his own mother recognized him in public surveillance images, called her son directly to ask where he had been. Then she told her husband about her suspicions.
Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift.
Utah officials also releasing text messages between Robinson and his roommate, who officials say he was romantically involved with. Robinson allegedly talking about the shooting, saying in part, quote, "I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." The roommate then responding, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" To which Robinson says, "I am. I'm sorry." There's a lot to get to tonight, including new details about a note the suspected shooter left behind. NBC's Morgan Chesky has been following it all and leads us off from Utah.
Tonight, the suspect in the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk appearing in court, wearing a safety smock to prevent suicide.
Could you state your name?
Tyler James Robinson.
22-year-old Tyler Robinson facing 7 counts, including aggravated murder. The prosecutor's saying he'll seek the death penalty, which means a potential firing squad.
I do not take this decision lightly, and it is a decision I have made independently.
The prosecutor also revealing new details about the hours leading up to Robinson's arrest, saying his mother saw these surveillance images, believing it looked like her son, calling him to ask where he'd been.
He said he was at home sick.
Then revealing her suspicions to her husband.
Robinson's father agreed. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views.
Prosecutors say Robinson's parents then spoke with him at their home.
Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it.
They called a family friend who convinced Robinson to turn himself in. Tonight, we're also learning more about disturbing text messages. Prosecutors say he sent his roommate the day of the shooting, telling the roommate to look under his keyboard.
The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it."
The prosecutor saying the roommate later texted, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" And Robinson responded, "I am. I'm sorry." The roommate asking why, and Robinson writing, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out," telling his roommate to delete the texts and not talk to police.
Mr. Gray, are you confident that the roommate had no part of this attack whatsoever?
Again, I'm not going to comment on the evidence.
And tonight, the FBI says its investigation is not over, including into an online group chat Robinson was allegedly communicating with.
So others could have been involved?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Morgan Chesky joins us now from Provo, Utah. Morgan, we learned a lot more about this case today, things that we did not know before. What other evidence was revealed today?
Yeah, Ellison, some of the key pieces of evidence that investigators revealed is that they found a DNA match on the trigger of that bolt-action rifle they believe Robinson used that they say belonged actually to his grandfather. That rifle, Ellison, had been a gift allegedly from his father. They also found target boards inside Robinson's apartment, and included in those text messages between Robinson and his roommate. Authorities say when the roommate asked him, "How long had you been planning this?" he allegedly responded, "Over a week." Ellison.
Morgan Chesky on the ground in Utah. Thank you. To help us break down the evidence prosecutors have presented in this case so far, I want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris. So, Misty, Morgan walked through a lot of it there. Let's start with sort of the biggest one. They say they have DNA on the trigger of the rifle that was used. How strong of a case does the prosecution seem to have based on what we know right now?
Based on what we know, very, very strong. So we have that DNA, that's forensic evidence on the rifle. In addition to that, we have these text messages, which also reference that very rifle. So we have these real-time text messages between Robinson and the roommate, which really lay out what was happening at the time. And then we also have the request to delete the messages and not to cooperate with law enforcement. So all of that together is really telling a story. And Ellison, you know, we rarely hear from defendants when we get to trial. These text messages are going to be the jury hearing from Robinson during that trial.
So given these messages exist, if you were a part of the legal team representing the accused killer here, what would be your strategy going into this?
At this point, you really have to be information gathering from a defense perspective, figuring out what evidence is out there and what path you're going to pursue. It's a bit premature to make that determination now. Could there be a mental competency issue? That is something that I'm sure the defense team would explore. But keep in mind, evidence that's in these arresting documents, it doesn't necessarily mean they make it into the courtroom. There's a whole host of evidentiary issues that are dealt with before you actually get to a jury. So I'm sure the defense team will be working on that issue.
The death penalty already on the table. The stakes for a state case couldn't be higher, but could we possibly see federal charges as well?
According to Kash Patel, it's absolutely a possibility. So this is the state case, aggravated murder. They're going to seek the death penalty. That was clear today from the press conference. But Kash Patel said they are exploring online platforms where there were communications with others. Didn't leave out the possibility that there may be others involved. They're investigating this. Now, Ellison, that's relevant because remember we spoke about you need a federal hook. Yeah. And that generally is something relating to interstate commerce. So the use of the internet would be in that bucket.
And in terms of what we heard in the press conference today and also at that first court appearance, what outstanding questions do you have that you want to see answered in the days and weeks ahead?
Well, I think there's still a lot of outstanding questions regarding the timing. He said he's been planning this for a week. Remember, premeditation is an element that prosecutors have to prove. So all of the acts that were taken in order to plan this crime, that's all questions that need to be answered. That timeline is going to be something that will be critical. So remember, we're looking at the planning, the commission, and the cover-up.
Misty Maris, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And on Capitol Hill today, Democrats grilling FBI Director Kash Patel over his handling of the investigation into Kirk's assassination. Patel blasted for taking back his announcement that a suspect was in custody before Robinson's arrest. NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has the details from that explosive hearing.
Tonight, FBI Director Kash Patel grilled by Democrats.
I follow you on your social media posts
that
it
tears
is my
this country apart.
to address your falsehoods.
Criticizing Patel for initially announcing, then taking back news a suspect was caught in the Charlie Kirk shooting investigation.
So that was a mistake.
I don't see it as a mistake. I see it as something working with the public to identify that there was a subject in custody.
But Patel touting the FBI's record.
This FBI is delivering the results we are delivering to include the lowest murder rate in modern U.S. history.
And also making headlines on the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals.
Democrat Adam Schiff arguing the administration has not been transparent about why Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell was moved to a lower security prison.
You want the American people to believe that? Do you think they're stupid?
No. I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. But all you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration, and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice Department did squat.
And Ryan Nobles joins us now from Capitol Hill. Ryan, there's also just been another disclosure related to the Epstein case, correct?
That's right, Ellison. The House Oversight Committee released today the transcript of the closed-door deposition that took place with the former Attorney General Bill Barr about the Epstein controversy. It is a lengthy deposition. In it, Barr said that he only talked to Donald Trump about Jeffrey Epstein on 2 different occasions, and there wasn't much substance behind those conversations. He also said that he's not aware of any specific evidence that would link any sort of criminal conduct between Trump and Epstein. Ellison?
An explosive day on Capitol Hill for sure. Ryan Nobles, thank you. And a major update tonight in the case against Luigi Mangione, a New York judge throwing out terrorism charges against the 27-year-old, the most serious he was facing for allegedly murdering UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. NBC's Stephanie Gosk was in the courtroom today.
Luigi Mangione was escorted into New York State Court this morning, cuffed and in prison clothes, just before the judge handed down a surprise decision, dropping the 2 terrorism charges in the case.
How big a blow is this to the Manhattan DA?
This is a huge blow for the prosecution and a win for the defense. This takes first-degree murder off the table. The penalty is much less now.
Prosecutors accused Mangione of committing an act of terrorism when he gunned down UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Manhattan last December.
In its most basic terms, this was a killing that was intended to evoke terror.
In his decision today, the judge said Mangione was clearly expressing an animus toward the healthcare industry, but the evidence failed to prove he committed the crime to coerce or intimidate a civilian population.
The terrorism charges dropped!
Outside the courthouse, Mangione's supporters cheered the decision. But he still faces 9 state charges, including second-degree murder, which could mean life in prison, and 4 federal charges, including one carrying a possible death sentence. The 27-year-old pleaded not guilty in both cases. A fund set up to pay for his legal expenses now tops more than $1.2 million.
So what does all of this mean for the state case against Luigi Mangione? Well, this charge that was thrown out, the murder in the first degree charge, in the state of New York carries a mandatory life sentence if he's convicted. He now no longer has to worry about that. However, he is still facing a murder in the second degree, and that can carry, if he's convicted, a sentence of 25 years to life. He also has to worry about the federal case, and in the federal case, there is a count that could bring the death penalty against him. So where does all of this go from here? Well, there are no dates set for trial either in the state or federal case. The next court hearing here in New York City in the state case will be December 1st. Allison?
Stephanie Gosk, thank you. Overseas, Israel launching a new ground offensive into Gaza City, driving hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their homes and into uncertainty. As the death toll there climbs, the international community growing more critical, with a new report from a UN commission saying Israel is committing genocide. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley reports, and a warning: some of the images are disturbing.
In Gaza City, the anguish of Israel's fresh offensive is already being felt. This man lost his daughter in an Israeli airstrike. Gazan health officials say about 100 people have been killed since dawn. An entire family, she said, my daughter's children, my daughter and her husband. Scenes like this, part of why a new report today from an independent UN commission says Israel is committing genocide. Israel's foreign ministry slammed the report as distorted and false. Amid a worsening humanitarian crisis, today's attack sent hundreds of thousands evacuating to uncertain safety. Witnesses said this family's truck was hit as they fled. Israel's military had called up some 60,000 reservists for the offensive. Our objective is to enhance the strikes on Hamas until its decisive defeat, said the head of the IDF. But Israelis worry this new incursion could jeopardize the remaining 20 hostages still thought to be alive. President Trump today warning Hamas about using hostages as human shields.
I can tell you that if they put the hostages in front of them, Hamas is going to have hell to pay.
Never see any.
Gal Galboa Dalal's brother Guy is among them. Hamas released a propaganda video of him last week. If you could speak to your brother right now, what would you say?
I would tell him that I can see on his eyes, I can see on him how afraid he is, how frightened he is, how sick and tired and missing home. But I also see the hope that he still carries.
And NBC's Matt Bradley joins us now from Tel Aviv. Matt, I want to go back to those findings from the UN Commission saying that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. They are not the first organization to make that determination. What makes this one different if it does? Could it influence any real change in that region?
Yeah, I mean, this organization, this commission commented on their own report, calling it the most, authoritative findings on the war so far from the United Nations. But it's important to note, Allison, as you did, that this group doesn't speak for the United Nations. It's an independent panel of experts that made up this report. And in so doing, they don't actually speak for the UN, which hasn't embraced that term genocide. But this is a United Nations body, and as such, its findings and reports like this one are very important. But you could maybe compare it to that determination that there was famine in the Gaza Strip in the past couple of months by another UN-affiliated body. That didn't really change things on the ground immediately, and it didn't carry any real legal weight, just like this report now. But it did change the conversation, and while that might seem incremental, that is important and historic. Allison?
Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv. Thank you. And when Top Story returns, another rejection for the Menendez brothers. A judge denying the brothers' long-shot bid to win a new trial. Where does that leave them in their years-long quest for freedom? And caught on camera, a Tesla in full self-driving mode, blowing right past railroad warning gates. What happened next with our cameras rolling? Plus, an unprecedented welcome from the biggest guard of honor ever to a joint military flyover. Britain is rolling out pageantry on a scale not seen in recent memory for President Trump's state visit. Don't go anywhere. We're back now with a major legal setback for the Menendez brothers. A Los Angeles judge rejecting a petition for a new trial for the murder of their parents. That decision comes just 3 weeks after Eric and Lyle were both denied parole. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has been following this case from L.A. and joins us now. So, Liz, explain to us the new evidence that was under consideration here, and what actually did the judge say in his ruling?
Yeah, so the judge, Ellison, was looking at two pieces of evidence that the Menendez brothers' attorneys had submitted. One was a letter that Eric allegedly had sent his cousin in the months before the murders, where he detailed the fear he felt of his father, scared that he was going to come into his room at night. And the other was testimony from a former Menudo band member who also alleged that Jose Menendez sexually abused him as well. The judge looked at both of those pieces of evidence to consider a new trial, but ultimately ruled that they were not particularly strong pieces of evidence and that they would not have swayed a jury to make a different outcome. Ellison.
Liz, what are we hearing from the Menendez brothers or their family tonight?
Yeah, well, Lyle Menendez posted on his Facebook account responding to this news that was first reported by NBC and said that it is deeply disappointing, but said that the fight continues. They do now still have two other paths to freedom. They're getting increasingly harder. One, though, would be that clemency from the governor. We haven't had an indication that Governor Newsom is going to do that anytime soon. And the other is still the parole path. They were both denied parole last month, but they can reapply within 3 years and potentially sooner with good behavior, Ellison.
All right. NBC's Liz Kreutz in Los Angeles. Thank you. We're also following President Trump's massive new lawsuit against the New York Times. Trump suing the paper, 4 of its reporters, and publisher Penguin Random House for $15 billion, saying they defamed him in coverage of the 2024 campaign in an effort to ruin his reputation, harm his campaign, and influence judges and juries against him. The New York Times and Penguin Random House have both called these claims meritless, while the individual reporters did not respond to our request for comment. The Times now joins a litany of media organizations that Trump has sued, including the Wall Street Journal, CNN, ABC News, and the parent company of CBS News. To break down what's in this new lawsuit, we're joined by Dominic Patton, executive editor at Deadline.com. Dominic, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Help us understand exactly what the president and his lawyers are claiming here.
Well, I think there's a couple of things, Ellison, we have to look at here. First of all, this is not the first time Donald Trump has sued the New York Times, and he's lost the previous ones he's sued. We're looking at here is the president suing for defamation and libel. He is saying essentially that the reporters and the articles and a book called Lucky Loser that were written by some of the reporters mentioned in this lawsuit attack him. They ruined took an attack on his chances in the 2024 election, and they took a chance at his reputation. I'll give you, though, a sense. Just let me put on my glasses. I want to give you a sense of one thing that's in this, just to give you the sense of it. Here's the way he's talking about The Apprentice. The Apprentice represented the cultural magnitude of President Trump's singular brilliance, which captured the zeitgeist of our time. Now, hyperboles aside, adjectives aside, there's a pretty big swing he's taking here. He's taking swings at the fact that he wasn't discovered by Apprentice producer Mark Burnett, but he was already famous. He's also taking a swing at the New York Times endorsing Kamala Harris. Now, I know that Donald Trump likes to go large. $15 billion, well, that's even 5 more than he's suing Rupert Murdoch and the Wall Street Journal for their Jeffrey Epstein reporting. But I have to say, the odd thing about this, 2 things. One, he doesn't actually present any evidence of defamation or libel. And the last I checked, President Trump won the 2024 election. So I'm not quite sure what the New York Times did to harm him.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my next question. I mean, you just look big picture in some of the claims here. President Trump did, in fact, win the campaign. He actually beat almost all of the legal challenges that are referenced in this lawsuit. So what would be the legal bar for proving that you were, in fact, damaged in a case like this in court if the main things that you're saying they tried to hurt me in this respect, you still did well?
Well, see, that's the interesting thing here, because the bar here is pretty high. It's not just that someone said something untrue about you. It's that you have to prove malice. You have to prove that they knew it was untrue and they deliberately propaganded an untruth. And that's a pretty high bar, even for Donald Trump. What they're looking at here, and of course, as you mentioned, the New York Times and Penguin have both said these are meritless. We've been down this road before. The important thing about this, of course, though, is this doesn't happen in isolation. As we saw with Jonathan Karl today on the White House lawn, the intimidation the president did straight to his face, as we've seen with the lawsuits against CBS, where they eventually their parent company, Paramount, paid up $15 million, and there's another $1 million, and President Trump says there's some PSAs or what have you that he's going to be rewarded with ABC Disney paying for what was an ill-considered remark by George Stephanopoulos, but many people thought was a pretty weak lawsuit. This is a part of the process we've seen the president and his administration engage with the media, with this idea of pushing them, hoping to push them into silence. To that, I will give an example that I mentioned before, which is his $10 billion lawsuit against his usual best buddy and a man he openly admires, Rupert Murdoch, and the Wall Street Journal for its reporting on the Jeffrey Epstein files and Donald Trump's connections to Jeffrey Epstein over the decades. Connections and stories that they continue to break as they fight these lawsuits against them. So whether or not Rupert Murdoch is the savior of American democracy and the First Amendment, hard to tell. But what is certain here is if you put up a fight, often President Trump backs down or at least gets a little quieter.
All right, a lot to watch. This is a story we will certainly be following closely. Deadline's Dominic Patton, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Still ahead on Top Story, a suspect arrested in connection to Beyoncé's unreleased music stolen from her choreographer. What investigators are saying tonight. Plus, the shocking video capturing a terrifying crash at a gas station, how that man narrowly escaped. Back now with a major break in the case of Beyonce's stolen, unreleased music. Police saying they've arrested a suspect after suitcases were taken from her choreographer's car ahead of the star's Atlanta Cowboy Carter shows back in July. You might remember this frantic 911 call from her choreographer.
They have my computers, and it's really, really important information in there. Like, I work with someone who's, like, of a high status.
I want to bring in NBC's Priscilla Thompson, who's been following this for us from the beginning. So, Priscilla, what more do we know about the suspect and ultimately how police were able to track him down?
Yeah, Ellison. So the suspect's name is Kelvin Evans, and he has been booked at the Fulton County Jail, charged with entering an automobile or motor vehicle with intent to commit theft or felony. And you might remember when we first reported on this story, police had said at that time that there was surveillance video. And according to this arrest warrant, that was really the key in this case. So they see on video a red Hyundai pull into the parking spot next to this Jeep Wagoneer that was broken into. They see the driver of the Hyundai get out of the vehicle. He's shining a light in the Wagoneer, and then he goes around to the back, and they say that you can see him taking suitcases out of the Wagoneer, putting them into the Hyundai, and then he drives off. And so police were able to look at the license plate, read that license plate, and track that vehicle down. They pulled over a woman who was driving the vehicle and arrested and charged her with a separate possession of marijuana crime. But as part of that, they interviewed her, and she says, you know what? My uncle borrowed the vehicle on the day when this theft happened. He said he was going to take it for 5 minutes. He ended up being gone for 30 minutes. And sure enough, when he returned, there were 4 black suitcases in the vehicle. And she says that she didn't think anything of it. She went on about her day. But then at a certain point, her uncle asked her to return those suitcases to him. And so she goes to this apartment to meet him, where, again, much like in a parking garage, there are video cameras, and he is seen taking these suitcases from that car and taking them inside an apartment there. And so police have all of this video evidence, and they say that was a huge part in tracking him down.
So, Priscilla, do police say that this individual knew what he was getting? Did it just seem like this was a random, quote-unquote, crime of opportunity? And in terms of that hard drive with Beyonce's unreleased music, was that actually recovered?
Yeah, the big question, right? So we've reached out to Atlanta police asking that specific question. They have not responded, but I will note that with the charges, this person, Evans, is charged with intent to commit theft or felony. It doesn't appear that he's actually charged with theft or felony, so we'll wait to see what more comes from that. But the other interesting thing from this arrest warrant is that police say on the video, Evans actually approached a different vehicle before he went to the Wagoneer. So this may have been completely random when you think about that. And it's unclear if he even knew what he actually had possession of or whose car he was breaking into. But I will leave you with a quote from Beyoncé, and we'll take it back to her Lemonade album when she said, "When you play me, you play yourself." Ellison?
Priscilla Thompson, excellent stuff. Thank you. Turning now to top stories news feed, starting with Fulton County DA Fani Willis permanently disqualified from prosecuting the election interference case against President Trump. Georgia's Supreme Court declined to consider Willis's appeal after she was taken off of the case. Back in December, an appeals court ruled that Willis could not continue her prosecution after it was revealed that she had had a relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. The court decision was praised by President Trump, and the case is unlikely to move forward. And new tonight, authorities identifying the body found inside a Tesla belonging to singer David. Police say a girl between the ages of 14 and 15 was discovered inside the impounded car at a Los Angeles tow yard last week. Investigators say they have not released her name because they have not yet located next of kin. The medical examiner is working to determine a cause of death. David's representative tells NBC he is cooperating with authorities in their investigation. And heart-stopping video of the moment a man narrowly escapes a car crash in Nebraska. Take a look at this. You can see the man washing his windshield at a gas pump when suddenly a car comes barreling toward him. The sedan spinning out of control, striking a pole, and the man dodging the car by just a few inches. He then doubles back to check on the driver, who was later treated at a hospital for minor injuries. That driver is expected to face several charges. And a warning tonight if you buy alcohol from Costco, the company issuing a recall for Prosecco over bottles that could suddenly explode. Costco says unopened bottles of its Kirkland brand Prosecco could shatter when not being handled or in use. So far, the recall impacts products sold this year between April 25th and August 26th. Customers are advised to immediately dispose of the bottles instead of returning them to a store. And as we've been covering a wave of high-profile political violence and school shootings, the White House quietly cutting federal funding to some programs designed to combat hate-fueled violence and domestic terrorism. NBC's Julie Sirkin spoke to the president of one of the groups gutted by those cuts, who says the work they're doing at the state and local level may already be saving lives.
I hated myself so much that I wanted everybody else to hate me too.
And that's why you almost became a school shooter?
It's a process. No one ever starts in the pitch black.
School shootings, political violence, anti-Semitism, racism. Though each uniquely devastating, Aaron Stark says the root cause may be the same for them all: isolation.
No one's paying attention to them, and the only way that they can be heard is by screaming out in violence and destruction.
Stark's childhood was filled with violence.
I wasn't just ignored, I was erased. I was a walking ball of nothing, and I was just about to commit an attack.
Why hurt other people when you made the decision to end your life?
My goal was to create the devastation that my parents had to deal with.
In July, the Trump administration cut funding to a grant program designed to combat violence and domestic terrorism.
We see these bright spots of excellence across the country where small programs are working. We need federal government support to take this work to scale.
What do you say to people who look at your organization and think, I don't really think it could do much?
Hate-fueled violence is preventable.
Brett Steele is the president of Eradicate Hate, one of the groups gutted by the administration.
We take a public health approach to prevent this type of violence, and we give tools for students. We had 10 pilot schools where we delivered the program in person. 2 of the students trained through that pilot program reported weapons on campus and averted school shootings.
It was born out of the 2018 Tree of Life shooting, when a white nationalist murdered 11 people praying in a synagogue.
What does your necklace stand for? I have to start there.
It says stronger than hate.
Michelle Rosenthal lost 2 of her brothers that day. Her purpose now is
to bring everyone together to eradicate hate. I mean, that is exactly what this summit is about.
Days after Charlie Kirk was killed and teenagers at a school gunned down, law enforcement, educators, students, and survivors from around the globe are gathered here in Pittsburgh,
including Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who is also a victim of political violence.
He launched Molotov cocktails and made his way through the governor's residence wielding a metal hammer.
What about this moment makes you energized to continue in your public service rather than take a step back?
I'm not willing to allow the fear to consume me. I'm not willing to allow those loud voices to drive me out. I've got work to do. There's real purpose and meaning in this work, perhaps more than ever before, just given where we stand right now with the rising political violence in our communities.
It's not only up to elected officials, according to high school student Braden Presley, who took part in the summit.
I want to make as much change as I possibly can in my school district.
Who says he often experiences bullying and racism.
They make me feel isolated. I feel like I've experienced enough where there's a lot of built up anger, and sometimes I feel like, I want to act out.
But Braden doesn't act out. He listens.
If you sat me down with a white supremacist, I would gladly sit down and talk to him. I want to hear his perspective. I want to hear, why do you hate me?
It's that dialogue that saved Aaron, too, who now helps law enforcement root out domestic extremism.
Give love to the ones that you think deserve it the least because they need it the most.
Aaron, Braden, and Michelle are united by one thing:
empathy and kindness.
Be kind to one another.
Yes, yes, yes. We're not heading in a very good direction, especially my generation. We are the future of this country.
Julie Sirkin, NBC News.
Julie Sirkin, thank you. Now to that high-stakes meeting of top Federal Reserve officials amid a slew of moves as the White House looks to exert greater control over monetary policy. Among those who will cast votes to set interest rates, Federal Reserve Governors Stephen Miron and Lisa Cook. Miron, who was President Trump's pick for the Fed board, was confirmed by the Senate just last night. Lisa Cook remains on the job as well after an appeals court ruled Monday the president could not oust her, at least for now. For more, let's bring in NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung. So, Brian, let's talk about how the Wall Street is describing this, because they say this is the strangest Fed meeting in years, particularly as this debate plays out under the glare of really what is extraordinary political drama, right? So what makes this meeting so extraordinary? And then the big question tonight, what do we expect the Fed to do? Are we going to see them cut those rates?
Yeah, I think the Wall Street Journal kind of describing it as a weird meeting kind of summarizes it well, because normally we're paying attention to what the Federal Reserve is doing on the economy and what their policy change is going to be with regards to interest rates. We're very rarely ever talking about the people who are making that decision. But up until today, which, by the way, was when this two-day meeting begins, they make the announcement tomorrow afternoon, but it's a two-day process. We didn't even know who was going to be in the room, because there was this kind of midnight question over whether or not, on a legal side, whether or not a court would allow Lisa Cook, who is the Biden-era appointee at the Federal Reserve, who the Trump administration has been trying to boot out on allegations of mortgage fraud, whether or not she would be cleared. The court ended up doing that. And we also didn't know on the Senate side whether or not the process was going to see it all the way through completion for Stephen Miron, who is Trump's pick at the Fed, to ultimately get through. He was also cleared. So it doesn't really change the fact, though, that even prior to all of the musical chairs of knowing who was going to be in the room, the expectation was still for the Fed to cut interest rates anyway. They are expected to do so by 0.25 percentage point. So people with mortgage rates that are watching the housing market shouldn't expect to see like a full percentage point or 2 full percentage points lower from here. But nonetheless, that would be the first interest rate cut since the end of last year, which would be notable.
Okay, so let's look at some other numbers out today suggesting that retail spending was actually up 0.6% in August and up 5% this year, despite Trump's tariffs. How significant is that? And is that something that could play into the decisions from the Fed?
Well, it's certainly significant from the perspective that it shows an economy that's not really significantly slowing down. I mean, retail sales are kind of consumer spending power. How much are you spending at places like restaurants, or spending at Target, or spending on luxury goods? And this retail sales report is showing pretty robust spending, at least as of this summer. I think the question is, does that hold through the key retail season of the holidays once we get a little bit closer to Black Friday? But I think the bigger numbers that the Federal Reserve is paying attention to are going to be inflation and jobs, because the story on inflation is that the numbers are ticking up. We're going in the wrong direction in terms of the yearly pace of price increases. That's something that's of concern with the tariffs actually just beginning around now. And then you also have the jobs market slowing down considerably. The last few jobs reports have shown a considerable slowdown in the monthly pace of job gains. That's what the Federal Reserve is watching for. That's the reason why they're expected to cut interest rates.
All right. NBC's Brian Chung, thank you. Now to an NBC News investigation. Some Tesla owners are sounding the alarm over the vehicle's full self-driving technology, saying it doesn't always stop at railroad crossings. NBC's Tom Costello has this report and the video of those troubling close calls.
At 130,000 railroad crossings nationwide, a constant fear for train operators that a car or truck won't stop in time. In Texas, Italo Fragoli was sure his Tesla Y's full self-driving mode would stop his car before the crossing arms, but he says it didn't.
It just seemed like it didn't see it at all.
Didn't see it at all?
It didn't see it at all. It's like it was just going to blow through it.
As Fragoli was telling us that he's had to slam on the brakes twice this year, it happened again, this time while our cameras were rolling.
Well, there you go. Sheesh. What the heck?
Look again. His Tesla only comes to a stop after Fragoli hit the brakes, even though the car was in semi-autonomous mode. And other Tesla drivers have similar complaints. An NBC News investigation interviewed 6 other drivers reporting Tesla's full self-driving software failed to recognize rail crossings since 2023. In one case, going through the crossing arms. At least one car drove onto the tracks and under a train. NBC News also found at least 40 examples online of drivers reporting similar mishaps. The railroad industry has been warning for years that autonomous vehicles must be able to recognize not just the lights and the gates, but also the locomotive, the whistles, the bells, and the horns.
It's not a figment of anybody's imagination. It's been repeated over and over again, reported all around the news.
MIT researcher Brian Reamer says the challenge for engineers is to teach the software how to recognize a very wide variety of train crossings.
Humans have the ability to decipher differences in railroad crossings that we probably have yet to fully teach machines how to.
The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration tells NBC News it's aware of the incidents and has been in communication with Tesla. Tesla did not respond to NBC's request for comment, though there are video examples online of Teslas coming to a complete stop before railroad crossings. For Fergoli, this was a close call.
Yeah, it was. It was.
3 close calls too many.
You have to be alert. You have to be aware of what's going on around you.
Tesla itself warns drivers not to rely on the auto driving software. Tom Costello, NBC News, Murphy, Texas.
When we come back, President Trump touching down in the UK tonight ahead of his state visit. What we're learning about the historic trip as the royals prepare to roll out the red carpet. Plus, an incredible discovery more than a century in the making. The mysterious shipwreck divers just found at the bottom of Lake Michigan. We're back now with breaking news overseas. President Trump's big royal retreat. The president touching down in London late today, making his way to the U.S. ambassador's residence, all before the big royal rollout tomorrow. This morning, President Trump bragging about his strong relationship with the king. Take a listen.
Well, my relationship is very good with the UK, and Charles, as you know, who's now king, is my friend. And it's the first time this has ever happened where somebody was honored twice, so it's a great honor. And this one's at Windsor. They've never used Windsor Castle for this before.
For more on this historic visit, senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us now from outside Buckingham Palace. Gabe, I want to start with the nature of this historic visit. Trump is the first U.S. president to be honored with 2 state visits, and the British are really going all out here, right? This is said to be the largest military ceremony for a visiting foreign leader in the United Kingdom. It includes 1,300 military personnel, 120 horses, along with U.S. and UK jets flying in formation. Talk to us about why all of this and why now. What makes this visit so significant in the eyes of the Brits?
Yeah, Allison, it is quite the welcome here in the UK, and it comes at a perilous time around the world with so many international crises, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, and all these questions regarding the tariffs that President Trump has imposed. And it also comes domestically here in the UK at a difficult time for the Prime Minister, who just several days ago fired his ambassador to Washington over concerns about the ambassador's ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. But this all comes as the UK is really trying this charm offensive, as you mentioned, to try and get in President Trump's good graces as he imposes these tariffs around the world. And they also plan to make their pitch to bring more U.S. investment here to Great Britain, and to speak about nuclear energy cooperation, as well as cooperation on AIs. And many business executives are expected here in the UK during this state visit. But again, this all comes as British officials are really trying to get President Trump here, who is well known to be starstruck by the royal family, to welcome him to Windsor Castle tomorrow, and really try and make a good impression on him, Allison.
So, Gabe, what else should we expect to see or hear as this meeting takes place tomorrow?
Well, you mentioned that huge flyover. Well, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump, as you mentioned, arrived here in the UK late tonight. They are staying here in London at the ambassador's residence overnight, and tomorrow they make their way to Windsor Castle, where security is airtight, and he'll have a procession inside Windsor Castle. It actually won't be outside, despite there being protests expected here in London and outside of Windsor Castle. President Trump will largely be kept away from that. At some point tomorrow, he's also expected to pay his respects to the late Queen and several other events, really a lot of pomp and pageantry before a white tie state dinner tomorrow night. And then on Thursday, he's expected to meet with the Prime Minister at his country residence, Allison.
Gabe Gutierrez in London. Thank you. Staying overseas with Top Stories Global Watch and starting with extreme flooding in India. Water rushing into villages, destroying homes and overflowing rivers. Heavy rains also triggering a landslide, filling buildings and streets with mud. According to local reports, so far this year, at least 40 people have died in India's monsoon season. Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro rushed to a hospital today after apparently feeling sick. His son saying he had severe hiccups, vomiting, and low blood pressure. This comes less than a week after Bolsonaro was convicted and sentenced to 27 years in prison for plotting a coup to stay in power. The former leader has been dealing with intestinal issues since he was stabbed while campaigning back in 2018. And researchers say they've discovered the oldest mummies in the world, but they didn't turn up in Egypt. The remains were actually found in China and Southeast Asia. You can see them right here. A new study says they're between 4,000 and 14,000 years old. The project began back in 2017 and looked at several burial sites. Experts say the remains belong to an early hunter-gatherer population and were smoke-dried over a fire during a mummification process. And back here at home, a major discovery making waves. A ghost ship found at the bottom of Lake Michigan 140 years after it sank. NBC's Shaquille Brewster talked to the man who found the shipwreck that had evaded so many others for decades.
It's a discovery more than 140 years in the making. A team of scientists finally uncovering the wreckage of a ghost ship after searching Lake Michigan's depths for decades.
The fact that we found it kind of blew us all away because we really didn't expect to.
The 144-foot cargo ship, the F.J. King, was built in 1867, but sank during a violent storm off Wisconsin shoreline in 1886, disappearing while hauling iron ore from Escanaba, Michigan, to Chicago. Searchers have been trying to find the ship since the 1970s, but were left high and dry as conflicting reports put the wreck site miles apart, some even calling it a ghost ship.
Fishermen had brought up pieces of her in their nets. The lighthouse keeper claimed he saw her masts breaking the surface after she sank. But despite all those accounts, people went out and searched that small area and never found her.
Until this June, when a team of everyday people led by Brendan Baylod found the King using side-scan sonar less than a half mile from where a lighthouse keeper said he last saw the ship's masts. How did it feel when you finally found the FJ King?
At the moment, it was unbelievable. We were pinching ourselves. Our citizen scientists got to swim down to the wreck in well over 100 feet of water and be the first humans to lay eyes on that ship since 1886.
To his team's surprise, the hull was mostly intact.
Because the Great Lakes are such cold, fresh water, everything's preserved remarkably well.
The Wisconsin Underwater Archaeology Association has hauled up 5 shipwreck finds in the past 3 years. Experts say as many as 10,000 shipwrecks still lie hidden in the Great Lakes. And Ellison, there is some urgency here. Photos of the F.J. King site show it covered with invasive quagga mussels that are known for destroying wrecks. That's why some shipwreck hunters have been searching the lakes with much more urgency in recent years. Back to you.
And thank you so much for watching Top Story. For Tom Llamas, I'm Ellison Barber in New York. Stay right there. More news is on the way.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.